So let's pretend the Prime Minister is listening to this podcast. Hey, Mark, what advice would you give him based on your experience as a housing expert going forward?
Oh man, I mean, I'm not sure what sort of. Gosh, okay, no pressure. Um, I mean, I've already mentioned the modular housing stuff. I mean, I know that was a big part of
Mm.
their platform, and I would just add a bit more caution, on the execution of that. But putting that aside, painting big picture, I feel like a lot of our housing crisis boils down to issues of governance, if anything,
Yeah.
and just the way, like, how the rules and regulations around our housing, where they're housed, who has jurisdiction over them, or kind of traditionally has had jurisdiction over them, and you know, I feel like in this moment, especially, but throughout time, I think Canada has been a real kind of model for good governance. I think people have really looked to our country as being a place where people respect the results of elections, and and so I feel like, if anything, maybe there's an opportunity right now to really build on that brand and sort of walk the talk. Like, if we are sort of to present ourselves as the alternative to the politics south of the border, that we care about governing really well, and in the interests of the public. Like, I think that's a way to sort of frame some of the, I think, governance challenges that are making the changes to some of those governance challenges in our housing sort of industry.
Yeah, one other area I'm curious about your thoughts on, because this would be some of my own advice jumping in here,
Mhm.
is we focus so much on housing as a supply issue, and it is. Obviously, we need to build more, but
Mhm.
ultimately, it's an imbalance between supply and demand. And
True.
I think we often forget about the demand side of that equation. And it can lead to probably some more controversial policy proposals that politicians would rather avoid. And we see that
Mhm.
even with the hesitancy to talk about immigration policy in a serious way. What are your thoughts on that side of the equation needing to be addressed?
It's a mixture of, like, needing to validate and also educate. It's, for sure. And Mike, you've written so eloquently about this before, that, we did have a real shock in the population. Like, the pace of immigration was, certainly jarring, and all of our, from housing to jobs to infrastructure, it really felt it. And I think it's, for me, understandable that people are frustrated about how that was rolled out, and the perhaps lack of coordination between various ministries to smooth that transition a bit more. Where I you know kind of have some worry is that, I mean, two parts. I think, of course, and I mean, I'm no expert on this, but I imagine there's a very good economic reason that our country has immigration, and there's people that can talk much better about this, but I think, like, it would be one of those things where, if we really sort of clamp down on this thing, another issue will likely just pop out the other end. But then, I mean, just speaking frankly, I think the rhetoric can sometimes shift from, we did this too quickly and too fast, to, like, these people are like, they don't fit in our culture, or they, like, they're causing danger in our streets. And there was a ton of content that was coming out in Vancouver that did concern me in that sense, where it was just really implying some other issues that resulted out of our immigration policies, that weren't just about, like, housing and infrastructure, but really about, like, you know uh, like cultural stuff. And that's what sort of gets me a little bit more concerned.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more, and I think that that's part of what motivates what I do on housing, because you see what
Mhm.
happens when there are these shortages, and we become kind of a zero sum society. We get into this us versus them, kind of mindset, or at least some people do, and it's problematic for society. I just like to propose, the answer to the question of advice that you give Prime Minister. I
I'm
actually
curious for your
really
advice. Yeah.
well, actually, I'm going to steal yours. That's okay. Okay, like something you just said 5 minutes ago.
Yeah.
I really like the idea that you kind of posit of, actually starting with what you want to build first, going, okay, you know what, we want to legalize these 6-story kind of stacked townhouse type models where every unit gets a floor. Like, okay, that's a great idea. Okay, what do we have to do to get there? And that's, single egress. That might be development charge reform. That's approvals process. One big one is like elevator regulations. Like all of those elevators that they put in Germany, none of them are legal here. But that's a whole other episode. But it's really wonky stuff like that, right? And I love that. I love that approach. And that would be kind of the advice that I give, because oftentimes you can get into this space where you take the approach where you're just promoting policy without really trying to figure out what you accomplish, right? It's just like, oh, I have a hammer, now everything's a nail, right? Or kind of stepping back first and going, well, what is it that we're trying to do here? What are we trying to sort of have happen or not have happen? And I love that vision that you have of saying, okay, we want to make it possible to build these 6-story, 6-unit stacked townhouses. Okay, that's beautiful. And then build the policy from there, rather than starting with the policy first and then kind of hoping it all works out. So to learn more about the issues affecting Canada's young urban middle class, please follow The Missing Middle.